Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Monday afternoon. Josh Heupel, the Tennessee Vols, with a monster commitment in the 2026 cycle. Four-star athlete Joel Wyatt committing to Tennessee. Now, this kid is potentially the most impressive pure athlete that you see in the 2026 cycle. And as much as people want to focus on the conversation of what position he's going to play, can we just focus on the athlete for just a second? When you simplify the sport of football, it's height, weight, speed game. Like if you have bigger, stronger, faster players, chances are you're going to be a better football team than the team you are lining up against. That is exactly what Joel Wyatt brings to Tennessee. I mean, his height, weight, speed profile is about as good as you'll see in the 2026 cycle. And I would argue that this is the reason that Tennessee has closed the gap in the SEC. And you make no mistake about it. Josh Heupel and Tennessee are closing the gap. Go back to 4 years ago. What really held Tennessee back was I don't think they had the athletes that a team like Georgia or a team like Alabama did. And yeah, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, they are and were all elite football coaches. But want to know what helped them be elite football coaches? They had the best athletes on the football field. Tennessee has very close or very, I would say quietly, because nobody's really talking about it. Tennessee very quietly is building a roster that can rival the teams like Georgia and Alabama just from an athleticism standpoint, especially along the line of scrimmage. And I look at a guy like Joel Wyatt, as much as people want to make a big conversation of what position he's going to play, and we're going to have that conversation in just a second. These are the type of recruitments that have allowed Tennessee to close the gap in this conference. More importantly, feel dang good that this kid's going to figure it out. He's too good of an athlete not to make it work at the SEC level. And he's one of those unique cats where it's legitimate 6 different positions that he could be an all SEC caliber football player at. Now, I want to get into that conversation. Where does he factor in for Tennessee? What roles could he play? Before we get into it, as always, the Tennessee fans, appreciate you guys. Many of the Tennessee fans who've been rocking with the fellas for the summer know how I feel about Joel Wyatt. As much as there's been that conversation of Tennessee and him can't agree on what position he'll play, we were all hoping they'd figure it out because this is a kind of athlete you want to bet on. Been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it now. What kind of held up this commitment, I think, was Joel Wyatt sees himself a little bit more as a defensive back at that safety position. I think Tennessee saw him a little bit more of a guy that's in the front seven coming off the edge as a pass rusher. Where does he best fit? Look, I think he can be a really good football player at multiple different positions. I think he can come off the edge. I think he could play off-ball linebacker. I think he's athletic enough to play safety. Heck, I think he'd be a dangerous pass catcher on the offensive side of the football as well. Let's start with what the position he's going to start at, and that's safety. Versatile, like versatility is probably where you want to start, at 6'4", 200 plus pounds. He's a unique kind of guy that can run with almost any wide receiver that you see in the country, but he's also a guy that can match these wide receivers at the catch point too. Go back to Tennessee playing Ohio State in that college football playoff game in Columbus. I think there were times where Tennessee in the back end at their linebackers and safety position, they just didn't have the size speed profiles to run with players like Jeremiah Smith. And you make no mistake about it, where Tennessee wants to go, which is national championship, you're going to have to cover cats like that. Whether it's Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, whether it's Ryan Wingo at Texas, whether it's DeCorian Moore at Oregon, you need athletes in the back end that can run with elite caliber wide receivers. Tennessee probably wasn't quite there last year. Joel Wyatt, guy that you can ask to do that a little bit more. I think you can also put him up into the tackle box. He's a guy that's probably going to be as big as some linebackers, probably can stick him in the box and have him support the run. My one question mark at safety is in man coverage. He's a really, really fast in a straight line. Ain't no question mark about that. He can burn for a big body. Little bit stiff. So what can he do in man coverage? Can you ask him to play a lot of man coverage? That's probably the question that I have at the safety position. But look, you want to play him as a center field safety and say, hey, you're really big, you're really long, you're really fast, and you got legitimate ball skills, go find the football. That could be a very, very effective spot for Joel Wyatt in this Tennessee defense. Now, the other position here is off-ball linebacker, maybe coming off the edge, of which I'm very intrigued by. So let's start with rushing the passer off the edge. A ton of length to this kid's game and a really good first step. He is a very explosive individual for that size. If you have him come off the edge, his first step in the length that he has, I don't know if there are many tackles that can deal with the pure athlete that Joel Wyatt is coming off the edge. Now, you're going to have to put some weight on the frame. You're going to have to add a little bit more physicality, especially so he can be a presence in the run game. If you can get him up to 240 pounds, maintain the athleticism that he has, he will be a problem coming off the edge. And then at off-ball linebacker, like that's another intriguing position. A guy that can go sideline to sideline, cover a lot of ground, could potentially grow into an off-ball linebacker that can stack blocks, shed blocks, and fit the run. There's endless possibilities. I mean, Joel Wyatt can play just about any position on the defensive side of the football outside of maybe the three tech in the nose. It's how unique of an athlete that Joel Wyatt is. Two-way player, getting some reps on offense, especially in the red zone with what he can do playing above the rim and going up with some contested catches. Certainly a possibility as well. We don't say it very often. We especially don't say it very often when it relates to the SEC. This kid can be a all-conference caliber player, multiple different spots. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about. That's why I've always been pretty consistently banging the table for him. Even though there's been some, let's just call it as is, maybe some disagreements between how Josh Heupel and the staff view Joel Wyatt and how Joel Wyatt viewed himself. We all wanted Tennessee to figure it out because this is an athlete you want to bet on, baby, because he's going to figure it out in the SEC. Where does Tennessee go from here? A lot of different conversations. I mean, we got two of the best prospects in the country that Tennessee is arguably trending for, right? Running back Savion Hyder, wide receiver Tristan Keys. I would be stunned if Tennessee does not grab at least one of these football players. My personal preference, probably Tristan Keys. Many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan, so I'm hoping Savion ends up in Ann Arbor. I think Savion's a really good football player too. Why I say Tristan Keys, Faison Brandon and Tristan Keys for 3 years, that has the opportunity to win you a national championship. Go back and look at the programs that have won national championships in the past, and you look at some of those dynamic quarterback wide receiver duos. I think that's what you get with a guy like Faison Brandon and Tristan Keys over the next 3 years. Tennessee very well might come away with both, though. And if you have both, you talk about Faison Brandon, Savion in the backfield, Tristan Keys out wide, that is about as legit as it gets when it comes to that running back one, quarterback one, wide receiver one duo. The other name to keep an eye on, a very similar conversation here, is Celesi Moa, and that's between Tennessee and Utah. It sounds like Tennessee certainly has a shot. He's committing on July 31st. Another unique conversation, a guy that can play two ways, legitimate ball skills as a wide receiver, but also legitimate playmaking ability as a defensive back. Sounds like, or at least I think, probably would be a better defensive back than he would be wide receiver, but wants to play both ways at the college ranks. It's another guy similar to Joel Wyatt. Just go bet on him. You're probably going to figure it out at least one position on the football field. Tennessee is slowly building some momentum on the trail. And I think Joel Wyatt is going to be one of the more fascinating players to watch over the next 3 years in terms of how he blossoms and what he blossoms into as a football player. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.